Welcome to Have You Heard with Heather Darling. I'm Heather Darling, and today's guest is John Kennedy, the CEO of NJMEP. John is responsible for setting the strategic direction of NJMEP as well as business development, sales, strategic implementation partners, and new initiatives. Mr. Kennedy is experienced in manufacturing, engineering, project management, operations, team building, budgets, cost control, public relations, technical training, and building strategic alliances. So there's really nothing with manufacturing that John can't do. He's had 12 years of frontline manufacturing experience in material handling industry. In addition to his business pursuits, John currently serves on the executive board for the Boy Scouts of America, New Jersey Special Olympics, and the board of directors of the Park Avenue Club Foundation, which supports 11 local charities in Morris County. Welcome back to the show, John.
Well, thank you. Some of that's changing, as you know.
I do know, and we're going to talk about that.
But, you know, it sounds like somebody else because, you know, some of that is in my past as well.
I'm sure you could go back to it in a heartbeat if you needed to, but, you know, today's visit, it's your third visit to the show, and I've had the show for a little over, I guess, it feels like more than 2 years, but I guess it's right around there, and it's a little bit bittersweet because you're about to step out of your role as the CEO of NJMEP. And how long have you been at the helm?
I've been there 12 years after I sold my engineering company, and you know, it just. You know, I turned 67 in a month, so got to look towards other things, and one of those other things is not working 70, 80-hour weeks.
You're going to cut it back to like 40 or 50?
That's what my wife says, but no, I actually got to get back somewhere.
Although you have been vacationing a lot. When I text you, I always get, love to, but I'm blank. And it's never in New Jersey watching television.
No, we have a place in Vermont.
And there's ski slopes and
well, there's ski
like
slopes,
that.
But we also have 13 acres of woods, so I get to go play in the woods.
Okay, which is always a good time, especially for an Eagle Scout.
Yeah, damn straight.
So describe NJMEP when you took over.
Well, it is a different animal for a lot of reasons. We were about 1/4 the size in financial, but also staffing. And the MEP system's a national system, you know that. There's 51 of us, including Puerto Rico. And our job basically is to work with the manufacturers in our region. In our case, there's about 11,000 manufacturers in New Jersey. And we do 4 things, and I think we do most of them pretty well. We assess companies. Got to find out what's the sore spots. We consult. You know, we get in there and we work with them to try to make improvements. I have a team of about 50 people statewide, 2 offices. But we also have a 70-person resource team that we can call upon that are experts in just about anything you can think of. The other thing is we do a lot of training, in-plant training for like Lean and Six Sigma, all those fun stuff, you know. Did some for lawyers too at one point in time, just to keep you guys in line. And also, we do a lot of workforce development. The last segment's the advocacy work, and that's how you and I got connected more than anything else. It's an important phase, and that was something that I don't think we did well in the past because no one knew who we were. We did great work, but great work without a brand that people can tie into those 11,000 companies isn't a value. You know, it really isn't. You know, because we forget that there's this amount of companies, 350,000 plus employees that make stuff in New Jersey.
Which is a lot when you think about the ratio of manufacturing employees to employees in other areas of the workforce. Now, members don't pay dues, but how many members, or maybe the word I should use is participants, do you have now as opposed to when you first started?
We have pretty much the exact same number because we don't have dues. We're not an association. We do have clients. That's what we call them. And any manufacturer, if their North American industry code says they're a manufacturer, we will work with them. And that means we'll go in and do assessments, or you know, they get total on with things that we do, whether that's our manufacturing day programs or some of the other events that we do. We try to provide services that are either reasonably priced, or when we can, at no cost. A lot of workshops are at no cost. If we can talk an expert into doing a workshop for no fee. And we have success. They're good people.
Is there a significant contrast between NJMEP as you go to turn it over to Peter Connolly, I guess, is the
Peter.
planned successor, as you go to turn it over to Peter from when you took over the reins?
Oh yeah, it's a different company for a lot of reasons, and some of those reasons we talked about. You know, we have grown our brand, grown our impact. We've done more work not only on the state, you know, level, but also on the national levels. And the good thing about Pete coming in behind me is that Pete was manufacturer for many years, running companies, but was also part of our board. So to have somebody like that in the wings, you know, that can hold down until some of our younger talent comes along and grows is a blessing.
So a little story about Pete. I recently presented to the Morris County Chamber ELC, and Pete was in attendance along with Kenny Schwimmer. And I had just had carpal tunnel surgery, so I wrote my notes instead of typing them out. And I wrote them on an NJMEP pad that I had gotten at one of your seminars along the way. And I mentioned it to Pete. So what shows up in an envelope at my office, but 3 more. So 3 more pads with NJMEP letterhead to spread the word. So there you go. You brought the right guy on board.
Yeah, I think so.
Have you accomplished your goals for yourself as you took over at the time that you took over NJMEP? And looking back, what goals might you have changed, or things might you have done differently had you known what you know today?
That's a tough one, because actually I always set goals. And when I first took the job, yeah. When I first took after about 3 months in, I wrote down 20 master goals that I'd like to accomplish. And actually, by the end of last year, I scratched the last one off, which was to get the state government to invest in the budget in manufacturing, and they did. $35 million manufacturing initiative, which is going to buy a lot of equipment for companies. So that was the last one to check off the list. Had I known, you know, I mean, yes, if I knew, you know, one of the things that I wasn't good at and had to learn is that when I owned my own companies, I did a lot of work for federal government, but not for the state. And I had to learn that type of conversation. You know, it's a different group of people, a different set of rules. And in New Jersey, you know, we're home rule state, which is wonderful, but it also, everybody has, you know, a different agenda. So it was something I had to learn, and learn by doing.
So this is sort of an off-the-cuff question. Our first meeting, our first conversation was about the importance of Made in America and Made in New Jersey. Had you seen, or did you foresee, that one day there would be a situation, an international issue of some sort, that would lead to a supply chain crisis if we did not have the availability of products within our nation and our state?
Well, it's been an ongoing situation. I think you and I talked about that at County College of Morris many moons ago. You know, it was about 5-6 years ago, and I think you were 29 at that time.
I was, thank you. I've aged like dog years.
Yep, it's all good. But anybody in the industry understands that stuff. What you needed was a tripping point where things toppled over. But if you stop and think about it, there's a lot of things that have shown that. Unfortunately, over history, it's usually war. And unfortunately, who knows? I mean, there's always enough of that strife. But I mean, things like President Trump's tariffs. What did they show us? They showed us that the United States doesn't make certain types of steel and aluminum anymore. We just don't make it. Who do we get it from? China, Japan, South Korea. That's not a good thing to be single source. Then obviously COVID taught us even more, things were difficult and in some cases impossible to get. The reality though is that a lot of that wasn't new. And that's one of the reasons I worked hard with our federal delegation, especially Senator Menendez. It actually started with Congressman Rodney Frelinghuysen many years ago, and Senator Menendez took it up during COVID, a national supply chain database tool to be run by the MEPs, and that is in the CHIPS Act, and it's not being funded enough, but it's being funded to start, because you got to know what's in your supply chain before you can
supplement it or
exactly
replace it.
It's not rocket science. You got to know what you do. And during COVID, we found out a lot of things that we did and that were available here, and everybody assumed they weren't. And that includes things like masks. We have companies in New Jersey that make excellent masks, better than the ones that we buy at all these places that are not necessarily American made or New Jersey made, but they weren't being used.
Not just making them, but the ingredients, whether it's a mineral that's used in a medicine or a lithium battery or any of these other things that we're looking at going forward. Do we have the resources for that steel, for that medicine, for that whatever it is here in our nation, or are there some things that we're just going to have to go outside for because we don't have that resource available to begin the manufacturing process of a product?
I would think you could argue, with a country like the United States, that we pretty much have all these, available. Not everything, but certainly we made most of the steel, after, before and after World War II, in the United States. It's a matter of balancing it so that we can do it. I mean, everybody wants a clean environment, and there's no reason why we can't. But you've got to be willing to do certain things. And, if we are moving in certain directions, you brought up the lithium and stuff, a lot of the batteries that go into all of these cars and whatever, if we have to ship them over from Africa or China or Russia, Ukraine, that's not necessarily in our best interest for the long term. And God forbid something happens where it's frozen off, then what do we do? So I think we need to get away from, I always taught you in business that sole sourcing is a bad thing. And yet we do it as a country all the time. And we're too smart to be this dumb.
It's a great way of saying it. Do you plan to leave Peter with any goals, challenges?
Well, I think he's got a list of his own. He's been around long enough to understand what has to happen, not only with NJMEP, but how we're viewed in the state and the national NIST MEP. We've, for the last 5-6 years, we've been the #1 ranked MEP because of our performance and our impacts and so on. And he certainly has the wherewithal. What I will tell whoever comes, the reality is that if you're looking for a 40-hour, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday job, this ain't it. You know, you're going to get calls from people at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning when there's an issue with the second shift. You're going to get, you know, texts on the weekends from a state senator who wants to reach out and wants to get an answer on something. And that's okay, but you got to decide that that's okay. Mm-hmm. If, you know, and I'm not saying Pete wants to do that, I'm just saying whoever, you know, wants to lead something like an MEP, this is the reality of it. It's very much a hybrid business.
States like Pennsylvania have very different corporate tax, more favorable, different corporate tax structures than New Jersey. What kind of impact has that had, and will it continue to have on New Jersey corporations?
Well, you know, when we look at things, especially, and I'm just looking at manufacturing, it's a lot easier for a company to move to Pennsylvania than it is to move to North Carolina or wherever. These machines are not only incredibly high tech, but they're also, in some cases, big. And, you know, just moving them. Plus, we think that only New Jersey might have an issue with trained and educated high tech manufacturing people. That's not the case. It's all across the country. So if you have a really good staff, you don't want to lose them. So why not move 15 miles to the west and go to Pennsylvania? And that worries me more than anything. And there's, you know, I mean, we have to figure out some of the ways to compete, because it's not just competing with, you know, Europe and China and, you know, South Korea, et cetera. It's competing with other states. And Pennsylvania's, you know, they're very capable.
Well, they're putting massive investment into transportation infrastructure now, which is another thing. So I attended a seminar last week in Lehigh County just to get the lay of the land and the feel of what we're losing to them. And it was a massive crowd, and it was all pluses. It was growth in most sectors, from housing to manufacturing and everything in between. And one thing that I thought was interesting that would apply to manufacturing is freight, because you got to get it in, you've got to get it out. And with massive investments in rail freight, you know, there used to be a sign, I don't know if it's still there, when you cross the Delaware on 78, it said, "Welcome to Pennsylvania, America starts here." And while we have our ports and everything else, it almost seems like they're competing to just do that quick 40-minute drive across the state from the port and make everything in Pennsylvania, where they can then ship it around the country and bypass New Jersey.
Well, there's an advantage to being in this area. We have it, but we don't have the lock on it.
Right, we don't capitalize on it.
Pennsylvania is, you know, I mean, and there's things that they do very well. I mean, certain, you know, we've pushed for R&D tax credits for companies. Federally, it works very well, and it helps companies. Why not a state one? You know, we've talked a lot about these things. You know, their minimum wage is much lower than ours, you know, and that helps and it hurts, you know. I mean, to be honest with you, you know, the average manufacturing employee with overtime makes almost $100,000 in New Jersey. So this is a good career wage. And there are a lot of advantages to, you know, I've yet to go to the shore in Pennsylvania. You know, I mean, you know.
There is a town called Jersey Shore, Pennsylvania.
I do know that.
So you can go there.
No, I've been there. I'm good.
I've been through it. It's like a mile.
It's like,
you're there, but you don't really know where there is. You
Somebody
just see
told
some
me
signs.
after we drove through it.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, I mean, there's advantages and values to being here. But yeah, I mean, everybody's competing for everything. And, you know, we're not. And this is going through the last 25 years of administrations. We're not competitive in many areas. And I'd like us to see, just pick two and change them. Don't worry about all of the segments of it. Pick two and fix them.
You mentioned machines. What is the future of employees in manufacturing as AI continues to develop?
Well, you know, I mean, it's just like anything else, you know, the Jetsons, you know. I mean, they still had Spacely sprockets and Cogswell cogs, so, you know, and that's where George worked. So, but you know, I mean, AI has its advantages, but AI in certain formats has existed in machine tools for a long time, whether that's CNC, you know, computerized programming and design and so on. The reality is that the jobs will continue to increase, but need a higher technical ability. Plus, you got to keep them running. And just like we found with a lot of our, you know, components around our house and our car and stuff, when certain things go wrong, it just doesn't work. And so we need to be able to develop these people. And in some cases, it's a college degree. In some cases, it's a technical certification or credential. In some cases, it's both. And again, we look at anybody. I have good friends that are electricians and plumbers who make a hell of a lot of money. But yet, people will look down on them because they go to work in jeans. I think they're okay with that.
It's not a bad thing.
I'd prefer to go to work in shorts and a t-shirt.
Soon. Have you seen a significant change in the profile of students, specifically with regard to age and gender, that are now going into or going back for these manufacturing programs that are really being implemented in our local colleges and universities?
What's happening that is a difference is it's not the younger people so much, because they're not being exposed to careers in real world. You know, they're exposed to get a degree, any degree. Okay, nothing wrong with any type of learning, but you go to college, at least my parents told me that I had to afterwards go out and get a job and go to work. So that has to be the end game. So you're not seeing as many of them come into the industry, but you are seeing the 25 to 35-year-old who has been out there, has a degree, and something that maybe they can't find a job. And I'm not knocking any degree, but humanities, I don't know what you do for a living. Sociology, unless you get a master's, you can't even be a social worker. So they're not being educated on what type of degree they want, and as well as what type of career. So you're seeing a lot of these people double back and saying, you know what, I got some skills. I can do some of this stuff. Their learning helps because they can communicate, you know, their college degree, but you know, I'm not a big fan of spending incredible amount of money on loans and stuff for a degree that's not going to ROI.
What role does NJMEP have? And I'm gonna do a little lightning round with you because I just got the wrap it up sign. So, what role does NJMEP have in developing the curriculum for these people that are going back to school?
Well, the role we've played is working with industry and bringing them to the educators. We've worked very closely with the County College Consortia, as you know, with Tony Iacona up at CCM. And we've had some great success because that's the connection that's lost. You can create a degree, but if you don't know what the industry needs, you're not creating the right one.
What role do you see NJMEP playing when it comes to future competitiveness of New Jersey and U.S. manufacturing?
Well, we've got to tie the supply chain together. We've got to daisy chain it so that there are more things that we can connect, more companies we connect. And if we can't do it in New Jersey, then yeah, let's connect them with Maryland or Pennsylvania or something. But let's find out if we can do it here first.
Does NJMEP play any role in attracting talent and companies to New Jersey, or do you work with the legislature for them to do it?
We do work with Choose New Jersey, and when we find something that might be a good connection, we bring it to them. You know, they're pretty good at moving that bar. So why not use them? They're the best at it.
One last question for you, John. Has inflation impacted the ability of manufacturers to start or continue businesses in New Jersey, or have they just had to raise their prices to stay competitive?
It's hard to raise your price in manufacturing. Some things, yeah, it's real easy, you know. But you know what? If you're working for companies and you've got multi-year programs and multi-year contracts, you can't raise your price. So inflation hurts everybody everywhere because there's going to be a cut something, you know, and that might be personnel, and you don't want that to happen.
Or quality. Nobody wants that either.
Yeah, but you know what?
It's fatal.
Yeah, it's a fatal flaw. It's your reputation. It's everything to you.
Right.
And these are a lot of small to mid-sized companies, and there's a lot of heart there. So,
Especially when you have that single customer that you talked about with, you know, all the eggs in one basket kind of thing.
yeah, not a good thing.
John, I want to thank you for coming on today, first and foremost, but for teaching me so much, because how you and I met, you know, our audience heard you reference it, but I had just become a commissioner, then freeholder, and my assignment was county college, and manufacturing was becoming something that was significant in education because it was shown as a necessity. And you and Tony and a couple other people, a very small group of other people, led me to people that were sort of paving the way in the legislature. Steve Sweeney, who sent me to Rowan so that I could meet with some people there to get some ideas to bring back to CCM and be effective in my role. So not only are you teaching manufacturers how to make their process better, but you actually taught me how to be more effective as a leader in my role in county government at the time. So I thank you for that. And I know I'm still going to see you at NJMEP events for years to come, but I want to thank you for teaching me what you did, for embracing me as a friend and welcoming me into your organization.
Well, I appreciate you putting the effort. A lot of people wouldn't do that. So you put the effort in it and helped our brand grow. And I mean, when I say our brand, made in New Jersey.
Well, if you want to be a leader, that's what we do. Like you said, the 80-hour work weeks, that's what we sign up for.
Amen.
So, thank you. And thank you for tuning in today for our episode of Have You Heard with Heather Darling. Today's guest, John Kennedy from NJMEP.